Hello, anime fans, welcome to Ghost in the Cloud, your anime podcast. This is episode 10. We made it.
We made it this far.
Happening. Double
so
digits,
cool.
people. Double digits. This is John, and with me is Bridget.
Hey, guys.
This week, we are talking about the 1988 movie Akira.
They pronounce it Akira, but I think we pronounce it Akira. No. It doesn't matter.
This
time I'll let it go.
That's for sure. But before we do that, as we do every week, we're going to get into some anime news. First up, the anime One Piece is getting a live-action television version.
Woo!
And get this, it's not going to be a Japanese TV adaptation. Hollywood producer Marty Adelstein's Tomorrow ITV Studios, which is also doing the live-action Cowboy Bebop, will be doing the One Piece TV drama. We don't have much information yet, so stay tuned for more as it comes out, but this has got to be pretty exciting for One Piece fans. The show's been going on for 20 years, which kind of took me by shock.
And I feel so old now. So, in other news, there's a Persona 5 anime coming out for all you gamers, and Atlas announced it last week. It's called Persona 5 The Animation, and there's already a short trailer, so we'll be sure to post that on social media. Atlas appears to be producing the show with A1 Pictures and plans for it to begin airing in 2018, and that's 2 years after the game was originally released in Japan.
Heard nothing but good things about Persona 5.
Oh my god, yeah. Actually, we were debating on possibly doing anime and video games episode, and I think huge fans of Persona 5 were the inspiration for that, because they're like, it's just anime and video games is humongous right now, so it's cool to see an anime coming from a game, because it's usually the other way around. And then last in news is G-Kids has acquired the distribution rights for most Studio Ghibli movies in America following an acquisition from Disney. There is exceptions, The Wind Rising and Grave of the Fireflies. The internet is rejoicing with the hope that these movies will be easier to access. And G-Kids also, we mentioned, I think last week, that they also got the rights to Mary and the Witch's Flower.
Well, they have.
Like the cousin of Studio Ghibli, so.
That's true.
So yeah, that's pretty awesome.
Okay, so that covers it for news. A little light this week. Next up, word of the week.
Okay, so this word I think is appropriate for the movie that we're doing. Gaki is translated as young or immature person, but I guess it would better be translated as punk or brat. And this movie is jam-packed with them, so Gaki.
Very true. Okay, so spoiler warning for Akira. I'm just saying Akira. It makes my life easier.
It's okay.
Spoiler warning for Akira, but you know what? It came out in 1988, so too bad. So Akira is a 1988 Japanese animated cyberpunk action film directed by Katsuhiro Otomo and written by Otomo and Izo Hashimoto. The screenplay is based on Otomo's manga Akira, focusing mainly on the first half of the story. While most of the character designs and settings were adapted from the original 2,100-page manga epic, the restructured plot of the movie differs considerably from the print version. So here's a quick synopsis. In July 1988, the city of Tokyo is destroyed by a psychic singularity, initiating World War III. Flash forward 31 years, Tokyo has been rebuilt, dubbed Neo-Tokyo. However, sedition and gang violence run rampant. One night, Shotaro Kaneda and his Bosozoku gang, the Capsules, battle their rivals, the Clowns. During the brawl, Kaneda's friend Tetsuo Shima crashes to avoid Takashi, a psychic esper who fled from a secret government laboratory. Following the crash, the esper and Tetsuo are taken away by Colonel Shikishima of the Japan Self-Defense Forces. Tetsuo escapes, but things aren't what they seem. He's begun to develop psychic abilities to which he can't control, and it is foreseen by Takashi and the other espers that Tetsuo will bring about the destruction of Neo-Tokyo unless he can be stopped. The espers awaken Akira, the first psychic test subject, to control Tetsuo. With the help of Kaneda and the espers, Akira teleports Tetsuo and the espers to an alternate reality.
Sounds pretty trippy.
Okay, so first thing, when you watch this movie, in the first 10 minutes, I think I said, oh my god, holy crap, what's happening?
Yeah, what is happening?
Half a dozen times.
Yeah.
Because it starts off incredibly violent. Incredibly violent.
I understand that it's trying to show that the city is decaying and there's a lot of crime and the gangs are fighting each other. But you can show people shooting each other, killing each other, but they take it a whole new level. They show the most graphic and horrible scenes. Like,
people are getting run over by cars and
Oh my God.
motorcycles.
And they're
getting
show
thrown
all
through
of it.
windows.
Yeah, you see like faces being blown off, and like it's pretty brutal. And which is why we should mention now, for those who haven't seen the movie, it is an R-rated movie, as it should be rated because of the violence and how graphic it can be. Not to say don't watch it if you can see R-rated movies, but it's, oh man, it was brutal. We had thought the same of the other 80s anime movie, Ghost in the Cloud, but this, like, it just blows it out of the water. This movie is by far more violent.
Yeah, it definitely took me by surprise. One of the things you sort of notice out the gates, outside of the violence, is the sort of background cityscape.
Yeah,
and the
so much
setting,
detail.
the setting of the actual movie.
Yeah, that's the one thing that people are always raving about this film, is that it is stunning. The visuals, the detail that's put into it is just amazing.
With that said, though,
I knew you were going with
there are
this.
times when I cannot tell the difference between the characters because all the characters seem
They're
almost
very
identical.
similar. They
Like,
all have these
have-
like boxy heads.
They all have like the same like, very
eyes.
similar hair, very similar just facial structure, very similar body. Like for the majority of the main characters.
And just to say, some of the main characters are female, and we still have trouble telling them apart.
Yeah, there were times when I was just like, wait, which one is this?
Which one is the girl K and which one is the guy Kaneda? Because I can't tell them apart sometimes. At first, they were so similar that we thought maybe they were secretly siblings, and they find that out later. No, it's just the illustration of the characters are very, very similar. It's kind of funny.
So the backdrop, right? What happens in the very, very beginning of the movie? It is 1988, and a mushroom cloud appears and engulfs Tokyo, and this starts World War III. People, for the most part, believe that it was due to a nuclear blast, but what it in fact was, it was Akira, this child test subject that Japan was testing on these kids and to develop sort of otherworldly powers. And Akira's power got so out of control that he was able to create this massive explosion.
And that's something interesting. So with the powers, it's said that these psychic powers are something that lay dormant in everybody. It's something that's already there that we just need to tap into.
Yes, please.
Yeah. Although it gets pretty gruesome if you can't control it, but...
Oh man, it's godlike is the only way to describe them because it appears in the film that like whatever the characters think about, like
happens.
they can do. There are times when it appears like they can fly, create things out of nothing.
Yeah.
Manipulate their body. Like it's very strange and like there's no sort of rhyme or reason to how it works, just that it does.
And they don't actually explain how we have these dormant powers, only that the government agency is aware of it, and with their technology and their medicine, they're able to unlock it. When they stumble across Tetsuo, they said his waves seemed different. There was something different about him, and that's why they kept him as a test subject, not realizing that he's different because he's just far more powerful than anything they've ever seen.
So you get introduced very early on to these characters known as the Espers. They're children like Akira that were taught to predict the future, move things with their minds, create essentially realities. And they have a very strange look to them. They almost look like they're zombified.
We thought they were aliens at first.
Yeah,
they're
they look
green.
They look zombified. They stay small like a child, but their body almost ages.
Accelerated rate.
Yeah, at an accelerated rate.
The use of the powers and the medicine, their bodies are literally drained and tapped out. So they're wrinkled like old people, but they're small.
And it's like a very disturbing image to look at.
And like their skin is turned like a greenish gray, like death almost. Like it's pretty creepy. You don't know if it's because of their powers that they've been using or because of maybe the way the government's been using them. Who knows? But it's really disturbing. And at first we thought we were looking at aliens from another world or something before we really knew the big plot. No, they're just kids.
Major themes in this movie, it blends science fiction with a deeply political plot. Neo-Tokyo, which is the backdrop, there are parts of the city that are incredibly, like, wealthy. Like, you have very wealthy people, and then you have the sort of rung of the society, and it's so apparent how things are that all of these gangs are just running rampant, and they pretty much control the whole place. So you get the introduction to Kaneda and his gang where you meet Tetsuo, and they, along with another gang, are constantly fighting each other and whatnot, and it's just this seems to be like no law at all throughout.
I think I can only think of like a couple times outside of the government agency where police officers actually even showed up. It's like they don't even try to enforce it, like they've given up or something.
The police officers themselves don't even, like at one point Kaneda and his group are sort of taken, but they're brought in by the military to the actual police. Like the military wants nothing to do with them. It's just like, oh, we're gonna take care of you, get you out of the way so you don't bother with us. But it's very strange to watch how Neo Tokyo is essentially a police state.
Yeah, and that also reminded me of Ghost in the Shell, where there was like the super rich and glamorous, and then there was the extreme poor and just crime everywhere, and the city itself was falling apart and disgusting, and it had that same look as the city of Tokyo. It was Tokyo as well, right? In Ghost in the Shell,
I believe so.
Yeah, it looked just like it. It was really, and then their school. Do you remember their school?
Yeah, so their school is this crummy, disgusting place that, like, apparently they were thrown out of all the other schools, and this is the only school that will still hold them. So, like, if they don't pass, then they're like sent away, and it's just like, it's terrible. Like, it's a terrible place to live.
Pretty gruesome.
So in very many forms, you have like a general power struggle. You got it between the gangs. You have between the governments and what we find out is a sort of resistance faction that is rising up against them, because obviously Tokyo seems like it's diseased and it's just rotting from the inside out. And even within the government itself, there are sort of these power struggles that you see where the military and the politicians are at each other's throats.
They spent a lot of time in the movie showing the corruption of individual politicians, where they're scheming and plotting behind other people's backs and storing up like vaults of money, and just they make sure that you can see just how corrupt even the leaders of this city is. And along with the theme of power, there's a power within the gang as well, where Kaneda, he's more the leader of the group, and he's strong, but he's also very kind, like, in a way. Like, to his own friends, he's kind. I won't say what he's, like, all the things that he does, obviously, to the other group, but to his own friends, his group, he's, like, someone to look up to, and he looks out for Tetsuo, who he's been friends with since they were much younger. He's saved him from bullying, and he's been, like, a big brother to him. But Tetsuo always feels powerless and resentful in a way, because he can't be at the top and he can't defend himself. So when he finally realizes that he's the powerful one and Kaneda is the weak one, he kind of throws it in his face, and it kind of
he sort of has a mental break.
Yeah, like the theme of power is very strong in this movie. Another theme that was reoccurring is religion. Like, there was a lot of these weird religious groups that were saying that Akira is like a god, and they keep foretelling of his return, even though it was going around that he is dead.
This is something I found really strange. So the beginning, or rather, at one point they do like a flashback, and you get Akira and the Espers sort of being trained to use these powers, right? It's the military and the government that's training them. So I'm kind of shocked that the regular sort of outside world is even aware of them.
That's true.
You know, like, because you have the mushroom cloud explosion that happens. Like, the government could easily say that it was a nuclear strike, and ultimately World War III starts from it. So that was one issue that I found with the movie. It didn't make sense for these sort of religious factions to even know who Akira was.
Unless they were sharing with the public their progress with
I guess
the Espers and the kids.
I guess if it wasn't made, like, public, but...
That seems weird, though. Like,
logically, if you were training anyone to be sort of beyond normal human capabilities, you probably would want to keep that on the down low.
Yeah, they never explain how everybody seems to know who Akira is, but they do, and they worship him like a god, and they foretell of his return. And I mean, like, they literally like chant about him and sing about him. And
the Neo Tokyo, Japan, I guess, all of Japan knows who Akira is. But the viewer has no idea who Akira is.
Yeah, they never explain it to us at that point.
So, unlike the manga, the movie doesn't really focus on Akira at all. He's this sort of MacGuffin throughout the whole thing, just sort of moving the plot along.
In the manga, he was the main character.
In the manga, like, from what I've read, he's the main character. And it's just so strange that, in my opinion, it was probably like a grab to, hey, this is about this manga, but then you get there and you kind of, like, in my opinion, I was a little disappointed because I was like, when is Akira going to show up? Like, who are even these characters? On top of that, the characters are difficult to tell apart, some of them at least. And it was just a little disappointing because the Espers are by far the coolest part of the...
Yeah.
Like they're the most interesting part outside of like Neo Tokyo itself of the movie, but you don't get enough of them. You get an idea of their powers.
See
at
more
times,
at the end.
very, very creepy, but
yeah,
they're not necessarily bad individuals either. And it's strange that you don't get Akira until the end.
Yeah, but the Espers, they were like the only true like kind people in the movie. Like everyone else had their own motives, but these Espers, these children, even though they've been so poorly treated and they're in terrible health because of their situation, they only think about what's best for the safety of everybody and about saving the city. They don't, even at the very end, I don't know if we want to get there yet, but they sacrifice themselves for somebody else that they barely know. Like they're the only like really true kind people, I think, in the movie.
Some of these characters, Colonel Shikishima, so he comes across as this totalitarian,
this
individual,
big brute-looking guy.
But he genuinely wants the safety of Neo Tokyo.
Yeah.
Like, there's this other character he's working with, Dr. Onishi, and Onishi is all about understanding the Espers, unlocking that potential, using that potential, where the Colonel, although he wants those sort of, the Espers as a military, like a weapon, he also, to a degree, takes care of them.
Yeah, he does.
Like,
I mean, with Tetsuo, remember that scene where he's like, let me help you. Let me give you some medicine. It'll help. And he
even goes out of his way to protect the Espers towards the end. And it's interesting. They teleport him away and then just like, here, you'll be safe here. Just like they have like a kinship with this guy. And you get a very different feeling early on in the movie, and you could sort of understand maybe he's like the big bad, but it ends up not being that case.
Yeah, and he's even aware of like the corruption and the other politicians that try to get him arrested because they didn't like the direction that he was going, and he put his foot down and he used his forces to take over, or he tried to take over but all for the sake of the safety of the city and trying to get order and peace and whatnot. Yeah, like I had him pegged as the bad guy in the beginning, and it wasn't that way at all.
Tetsuo, who is now exposed to these crazy powers, starts to lose his mind.
Yeah,
and
he loses
he becomes
himself.
The big bad, and his whole end game is to reawaken Akira. So apparently, Akira was killed by his power. He was torn apart. At one point, you get these sort of vials.
Yeah, they had them frozen.
Vials, and they're just his organs.
His organs and research, everything that they had on Akira, they had it stored frozen in this one cell, this capsule, in hopes that one day they could save him, bring him back, or just understand what happened. Tetsuo thinks that he like sees him in his dreams, and he's like, who's disturbing my mind? Who is it? I need to see him, and he needs to understand. So he, not knowing that Akira is dead, he finds the capsule and he tears it open to find these vials of just his organs. They don't really explain how it happens, but the Espers, those three ghostly kids, they're like, it looks like they're praying in front of them or like concentrating. And then somehow Akira just reforms and reawakens somehow. Like he gets a physical form again.
Yeah. So Akira is essentially...
He's
the
godly.
strongest of them all. And that's why he couldn't control his powers, and he killed himself essentially. Yeah. Essentially, I should say. Quote, air quotes.
Yeah, air quotes. Yeah,
because he does reappear to a degree at the end, ultimately saving Neo Tokyo.
Yeah.
And the world. Tetsuo is mentally broken. He's power hungry. He's coming to the understanding that he has an ability to do anything.
Yeah.
Without proper control, that power can just go unchecked.
Well, he doesn't know this, and it's for the first time he doesn't need someone to defend him, to be there to, stop him being bullied. Like, he can take care of himself, and that's what he always wanted, and he has it. And he has people telling him that he can't control his new power to let them help. And he's like, absolutely not. I'm the strongest now. Look at me, And then when he realizes he does need help, it was far too late. And it was the most gruesome and I think mind-assaulting scene of the entire movie was the part when his body went rampant and he couldn't control his own body anymore.
Yeah, the power was manipulating his body and just like transforming him into
he was growing into this giant, like creepy looking, almost like a baby. Like he was reverting back to like an infant, like crying for help, but he was ginormous and absorbing everything in sight. People, including his this girl that he was in love with. And you actually like see the scene where you just see blood splatter because she got squished. It was disgusting. It was terrible. And then Kaneda started to get sucked in too.
So Kaneda is painted as the hero of the story, but he is a terrible person.
Yeah. Is there actually a likable character in this movie besides the Espers?
The Espers might very well be it.
Yeah, I think the Espers.
Maybe the Colonel.
But even he...
By the end, you get an idea of what his ultimate goal is, but even
good intentions, but people haven't always done the greatest things with good intentions, and he also, the Colonel, has done some pretty awful things.
Yeah, like he's ordered people to get like shot and
to
just make sure that they were in his way because he needed to save the world and stuff. And
I mean, you can argue that Kaneda had good intentions, like taking out the other gang, the clowns, to protect his friends, but they're still all bad people in a way. Like they still do terrible things to other people, whereas the Espers are the only good ones. In my opinion, Tetsuo, he started out as a pretty innocent character. He never really, I don't think he ever had a hand in any killing. He was too weak. And but that at the end, when he finally had power, what did he do with it? He killed people. He destroyed part of the city. He was going to destroy the whole city if he wasn't stopped. So he wasn't good at heart either. He became corrupted by his powers. But the characters who had powers all along were the Espers, and they were very good people. And one thing they actually said was, they said to Tetsuo, someone as big as you should not have these powers. Big people shouldn't have powers because they see like the corruption that you get as you get older and what happens when corruption meets that power. And that's exactly what happened with Tetsuo. Whereas these kids, these innocents that had this power, like kind of maybe that helped them keep control over it. There's so much symbolism in this movie. There's so much going on, and just reading articles and reviews on this movie, so many people said I didn't understand it until I watched it 5 or 6 times, which we did not do, by the way.
No, we watched it once. I think I was dozing off towards the end of it.
I had to shake you. No. But you know what? A lot of people said that when the first time you watch it, if you feel disappointed, you're not alone. It's just overwhelming and not clear exactly what happens, while the movie is so visually detailed and there's so much to look at. The plot itself isn't actually fully explained to you, and there's a lot open for interpretation, and all the symbolism that people talk about, you have to wonder if it's just people overanalyzing and over-critiquing, or if it wasn't really meant that way. But yeah, I mean, a lot of it could be overanalyzing. Some people argue that Kaneda was like the good and Tetsuo was the evil, and it was a light and dark kind of plot. And a lot of people think that there's like Christian undertones with the rising of Akira coming back. Just so much stuff like buried in this movie that I honestly didn't interpret when I watched it, but just reading just other people's like critics' reviews of it. The one thing that this movie did do is it kind of opened a doorway for a lot of anime that we have today. It was one of the first animated cartoons that were not intended for children. They were intended for adults, and it kind of opened people's eyes to what we can do with animation. So that's something that Akira helped do. It wasn't the only one, but certainly it was a huge part in it. So that's something that we need to thank Akira for.
It's considered huge. Like a landmark.
It is, animation. Yeah. So even whether you understand it or not, it did have a nice contribution to the anime that we have today. And one thing that we always tell people is, we watch cartoons. We're adults. That's okay. Anime is intended for all ages, and one of the reasons is because of Akira. So thanks, Akira, even though I'm not a big fan of the movie, to be honest.
I find it a very difficult movie to enjoy.
It really gets you thinking, and
I don't think the plot was overly good, or
I just think it wasn't.
The animation was interesting, enough,
But still, the animation of the people is really funny.
There's so much going on too. Like you have the politicians attacking politicians. You have the resistance attacking the politicians. You have the military attacking the people and the politicians. You have the biker gangs attacking each other. You have these espers trying to escape and also help people at the same time. It's very, like, there's way too many things happening at once.
Yeah.
And it's not difficult to follow, but you're just like, we kind of gotta cut out the clutter. There seems to be too much going on.
Yeah, I can see that.
And on top of that, Akira is this focal point of the story, but you don't even get anything really on him. You get one flashback scene. You get, the vials and stuff of his remains.
And maybe the movie was just supposed to take place in the world of Akira. So this futuristic movie takes place in the very distant year of 2019. So all these, the crazy technology and these crazy looking bikes and everything, something to look forward to in the next couple years. 2 years away.
They also called for World War III. So,
I don't even want to think about that. Too close to home.
Let's hope it's not going to happen the way the movie happened.
It's, I've seen this in other, like, sci-fi films, but older films, they'll be like, wow, it takes place so far in the future, and we watch it now, and we're like, wow, that's only a few years away. And this one takes place 2 years from now, so that's a funny thought. Funny, but
what's interesting, in the movie, they're planning for the Olympics.
Yeah.
In that stadium, like, Tokyo actually has the Olympics in 2020.
Oh, that's really funny. Really I didn't even notice that. Yeah, that's right. There was the
small little
the stadium there. Yeah, that's crazy. I hope the rest doesn't come true. If you can watch the R-rated movie,
I think you should watch it because it's one of those movies that everyone talks about. By now, if you say Akira, people know what it is. Yeah. People have heard of it. That, in my opinion, is the only reason to watch this movie. I personally don't like it, and I can pretty much like anything.
I know. I mean, like, there's again, like you said, a big cult following for this film. So
the world they build is very beautiful to look at, even though it's at times it's disgusting. The characters I don't find intriguing. Like, I don't know. There were things about it I just didn't prefer.
It's hard. It was not a lot to grasp onto. You always have a character that you follow, whereas this movie, there wasn't any one main character and not even any likable characters. And, you're thrown between all these different groups that are killing each other. It was just, you're kind of thrown around.
My favorite part of the movie, Tetsuo escapes and he's starting to get a handle on his powers, and he grabs a red cloth and makes himself a cape. Yeah, that's my favorite part of the movie.
Yeah, I got a kick out of that. But the very end of the movie, that was a really big thing. So there was, when Akira rescues Tetsuo.
Right, so
there was another great big light. A big boom, but this time it wasn't so destructive, was it? This time it created a universe.
We just scratched the surface with their abilities, and the espers, Akira, they teleport Tetsuo to an alternate reality because he can't control his power. He's gonna explode, and in doing so, they create another universe.
Yeah, which you wouldn't know that from just watching the last few minutes of the movie. You have to read about it, but you see this great big light. You see Akira, with the help of the 3 Esper children, they take Tetsuo, they go into the light, and they disappear. But they use their power to save Kaneda, and they get him out of the mess. At that moment, when it disappears, and some buildings fall, but otherwise, the people are unharmed, all that's left is a marble-sized light that Kaneda for a moment holds in his hand before it disappears. And that is the universe that they created. With the Espers, Akira, Tetsuo, they create a universe. And then at the last moment of the movie, he hears Tetsuo's voice and he says, "I am Tetsuo." And you have to wonder, people interpret it in different ways, but most people agree that he says it because he's saying "I am God." He says, "I am Tetsuo," because he created a universe. And he's the god of that universe. So, and they don't explain what this other reality is, but we don't really know. We don't really know where they are. Just that it's another dimension, it's another reality, and they're gone, and everyone's safe.
Well, if you guys are interested in it, you should pick up the manga, because apparently the anime movie only covers sort of the first half. So you very well may get more information on them later on.
Yeah, many people said that there's more information, so it's better explained in there. And, it's over 2,000 pages, so I'll be a heavy read. It is a classic, so, and if anyone else has any interest interesting analysis or interpretation of the movie, because there's so many, then definitely let us know and give us a shout. But
yeah, let us know if you like it.
It's such an overwhelming movie. It's just so much going on.
Very intense.
But it's a classic, so we did it. We talked about Akira. But yeah, so let me know what you guys think. And if you've seen it or if you've read the manga and there's something in there that's not explained, we definitely want to know about it. You can always reach us on social media. So we got our email at gitcanime@gmail.com. And then we're on Facebook and Twitter. Just look for GITC Anime. And episodes are always up on SoundCloud and iTunes. And then, of course, we have our Patreon. So check us out on Patreon at patreon.com/GITC Anime. And the more you give, the more you get. So it's pretty awesome. And we have some more rewards coming to Patreon soon that we're pretty excited about, so check us out. Also,
rate us on iTunes. Give us a rating. We would love to hear some feedback so we can make the show better.
Hell yeah. Next week.
So we're going to do a two-parter, a back-to-back.
Our first two-parter.
Fate Stay Night and Fate Zero.
Those are amazing shows, and we couldn't talk about one without talking about the other, so pretty good. Here's a chance. You got to watch them. So see you guys next week.
Bye.
Bye, guys. Yeah.